Hey all. This is Six Path Weeb, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, where we dive deep into the worlds of anime, fan theories, and what-if scenarios that challenge the stories we thought we knew. Today, we're continuing our exploration of a universe where the boundaries between good and evil blur, and one character's presence could change everything. Our fanfic topic for this episode is what if Naruko captivated devils and angels alike? Part 2. We're going to dissect how her influence might sway even the most divine and the most malevolent beings, reshaping alliances, testing loyalties, and redefining power dynamics across realms. It's a journey into imagination, strategy, and the unpredictable consequences of charisma and choice. Before we jump in, a quick disclaimer: the content on this channel is purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. So, settle in, keep an open mind, and let's explore how one character could captivate the hearts and minds of both devils and angels alike. Let's start, guys. Ria stood up, eyes wide in surprise, as she stared at Naruko, who had just revealed a dazzling pair of silver wings sparkling in the sunlight streaming through the window. What? I don't understand. You said you were a yokai, Ria stammered. Naruko blinked, then grinned cheekily, a playful twinkle in her golden eyes. Well, technically, I never said I was fully a yokai. That was just an assumption on your part. You have to love technicalities, don't you? Rias took a cautious step back, summoning a soft shimmer of magic in her hands. If you are a reincarnated devil, then tell me, who is your master? Where is your peerage? And why are you here, wandering into Gremory territory without permission? Naruko tilted her head, wings fluttering slightly. Are you done listing questions yet? She asked calmly. When Rias and her companion, Akeno, narrowed their eyes, preparing for an answer, Naruko raised her hands gently. Relax. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm just here to chat. Then start talking. Answer my questions, Rias demanded, her hand still glowing faintly with magic. All right, Naruko said with a soft laugh, lowering her wings. She sank gracefully onto a cushioned chair and gestured toward an empty cup. But first, could someone refill my tea? A little refreshment always helps with conversations. Akeno quickly obliged, handing over a fresh cup. Naruko took a delicate sip and let out a contented sigh. Better. Now. Many years ago, when the evil peace system was still new, a very kind devil approached me. She asked if I would like to be reincarnated as a devil. Rias tilted her head, curiosity flickering across her face. And you agreed? Naruko shook her head with a small giggle. Not at first. I said no for a very long time. Every day, for 3 whole years, she came to ask me again. Eventually, I agreed, but only if the terms were fair for me. And of course, she agreed happily. That's why I don't have a king who can give me orders. I'm a free-spirited devil, if you like. Rias and Akeno stared in stunned silence, their minds turning over every word. So, you just do what you like? Rias asked finally. Exactly, Naruko said, smiling warmly. I help when I want to, and I rest when I need to. Life is far more enjoyable that way, don't you think? She sipped her tea again, wings folding gently behind her back. Then why are you here, if you aren't following orders? Akeno asked, leaning forward. Naruko's eyes sparkled with mischief. I'm here to watch the fun. You see, you two are the heiresses of 2 very important devil families, and you happen to live quietly in a small town. That makes you perfect for a little entertainment. I'm on a sort of holiday, and I thought, why not see what happens? Rias blinked. Entertainment? Yes, Naruko said cheerfully. Not to worry, nothing dangerous. Just little adventures and surprises. Watching stories unfold is far more delightful than sitting alone all day. She stretched her wings slightly, letting the sunlight catch the silver shimmer. And now, if you're ready, I think it's time you meet the rest of my friends. I promise they're as fun as I am. The 2 girls stared, unsure whether to laugh or scold her, but Naruko's cheerful grin was infectious. Slowly, the tension in the room melted into a warm, curious silence. And for the first time that day, the occult research clubroom felt like the beginning of a grand, whimsical adventure. Why was it so quiet? Naruko wondered as she glanced around the room, taking in the curious faces of the devils gathered there. Akeno was calmly pouring tea, her smile as warm as sunshine, seemingly unfazed by the hush. Rias and Kiba looked a bit uneasy, their eyes tracking Naruko like they expected her to do something unexpected. And then there was Koneko. Well, she just looked like Koneko, silent, stoic, and impossibly cute, her gaze fixed on Naruko with the calm intensity of a tiny cat. Koneko had pure white hair that shimmered softly under the light, styled in a short bob with two long bangs falling past her shoulders, while smaller bangs framed her small face. Her honey-brown eyes were bright and observant, and on either side of her hair, she wore black, cat-shaped clips. She nibbled delicately on Japanese sweets, her small hands clutching the plate as if it were her most treasured possession. Despite her petite frame and youthful appearance, Naruko knew Koneko had to be around 15, she just looked a little younger, like a sprite from a storybook. Feeling brave, Naruko stepped forward. "Hello, little kitten. I'm Uzumaki Naruko," she said cheerfully, offering her hand. Koneko glanced at it suspiciously, then tucked her own hands behind her plate, guarding her sweets like a tiny, furry sentinel. "Easy now," Naruko said with a playful grin. "I'm not here to take your treats. I just wanted to say hello, one magical creature to another." "Hello," Koneko replied, her voice soft and almost like a whisper, but steady. She relaxed just a bit, though she kept the sweets close and avoided eye contact. Naruko noticed the careful way she watched her, like a little guardian cat observing a visitor in her forest. "Naruko-san," Kiba spoke up, stepping closer. "This is Tojo Koneko, a first-year academy student and a member of the Occult Research Club, as well as Buku's peerage. Koneko-chan, this is Naruko, a reincarnated magical creature like you, though whose peerage she's part of, I can't say." "It's nice to meet you, Naruko-senpai," Koneko replied in her soft, even tone. Naruko smiled warmly. "The pleasure is mine, little one. I hope we can become good friends." Slowly, Koneko extended her hand for a quick handshake. It was small and careful, but there was a spark of something familiar in the gesture, even if she had never met Naruko before. Naruko squeezed it gently, smiling all the while. Ria stepped forward, finally breaking the silence. "It's lovely to see you getting along, Naruko-san," she said, her voice encouraging and gentle. Naruko waved a hand in a playful salute, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Akeno tilted her head with a graceful smile. "So, Naruko-kun, what are you planning to do while you're in town?" she asked, clasping her hands together in front of her. "Mostly just explore Kuo Academy, meet new friends, and learn about the magic here," Naruko replied cheerfully. "Perhaps I'll introduce myself to Sitari-san too. And you? Do you have any fun plans?" Akeno laughed softly. "Perhaps I'll keep an eye on you. You seem full of surprises." Naruko grinned. "If I keep being this charming, you might have no choice but to." Finally, Rias cleared her throat. "Now that everyone is here, we have a small request for you, Naruko-san." Raising an eyebrow, Naruko tilted her head. "Oh? I'm listening." "There's a gentle fallen angel visiting the academy," Rias explained. "We don't want anyone to bother her. We ask that you simply enjoy your time here and leave her be." Naruko's eyes widened in curiosity. "Oh. So I'm just supposed to watch and make friends instead of interfering?" "Yes," Rias said, smiling. "Sometimes the best magic comes from kindness and understanding, not action." Naruko nodded thoughtfully, feeling a warm, tingly excitement in her chest. This sounded like the start of a wonderful adventure, one full of new friends, quiet magic, and little mysteries waiting to be discovered. And beside her, Koneko gave a small, approving nod, the first sign of friendship forming between two magical beings. With a cheerful sigh, Naruko settled into the couch, ready to explore the wonders of Kuo Academy, one smile, one laugh, and one gentle magical moment at a time. Even though everyone said the city was an easy place to sneak into, it was well known that there were vigilant guards patrolling the borders. They made sure that no mischief makers wandered in and would immediately report anything unusual to the city's leaders. Naruko's older friends often reminded her, gently but firmly, that despite her independence, she was always under careful watch. Silly as it sounded, her protectors didn't want her to get into trouble, even by accident. "I don't want that visitor to be harmed in any way," Ria said, her eyes sparkling with a mix of mischief and thoughtfulness. "In fact, I don't even want her to know we're aware of her." Naruko blinked, tilting her head in curiosity. "Wait. Why not? And why tell me about it at all?" Akeno, who was leaning gracefully against the table, smiled faintly. "Because we can't risk you taking matters into your own hands. Usually, we deal with visitors like her immediately. But this one, we need her for now." Naruko raised an eyebrow, slightly amused. "So, you're letting her wander around freely in the middle of your territory?" Instead of answering, Akeno pulled a folder from under the table. She flipped through the papers with a practiced grace, finally pulling out one that seemed just right. She slid it across the table toward Rias. "Hi, how do Issei?" Rias began, her voice calm but focused. A 16-year-old student at Kuo Academy. Not the brightest, not the strongest. But well known for other reasons. "Perverts," muttered a small voice. Turning, Naruko saw Koneko, quietly munching on sweets as usual. Akeno chuckled softly. Now, Koneko, being a little perverted isn't so bad. Especially when there's someone around to guide you. She glanced at Naruko with a teasing smile. Koneko simply stared for 5 seconds before saying flatly, "Pervert." Akeno laughed heartily, clearly enjoying the long-standing rivalry. "So this visitor," Naruko asked, leaning forward with interest, "she's here for Issei, isn't she? And if she's after him, she must have some special power too?" Rias nodded, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "She goes by Amano Yuma for now. We don't know her real name, but we do know she's extraordinary. Normally, we would have stopped her, but it seems she has a purpose. A very important purpose." Naruko's smile widened. "And you're just going to let her do whatever she wants?" "Exactly," Rias said firmly, her determination shining through. "At first, we worried she'd try to recruit Issei for her own side. But she hasn't made a move. Now it's clear, she's here to protect him in her own way. So we watch, and let her act." Naruko shook her head in disbelief, impressed and a little worried. "You really trust her? Even if it's risky?" Rias's expression softened into one of confident resolve. "Sometimes, the best way to help someone is to let them grow on their own. We'll be nearby, of course, but we won't interfere." Naruko couldn't help but admire their strategy. For a moment, the city felt alive with possibilities, plans, secrets, and hidden magic swirling through the streets. That night, Naruko walked through the quiet streets of Kuo, thinking about the day. Her thoughts were interrupted by a presence nearby, powerful and familiar. Footsteps echoed softly behind her. Naruko spun around, grinning, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "You're either brave. Or a little foolish. Not many dare sneak up on me. Which one are you?" A tall figure approached, a charming grin lighting up his face. Dark hair fell loosely over his forehead, and bright pink eyes twinkled with mischief. He wore a crisp white shirt under a flowing red coat, moving with easy confidence. "You're hard to find," he said, his voice warm and playful. "It's been 100 years, maybe more?" Naruko crossed her arms, trying not to smile. "Well, maybe I didn't want to be found. But how did you even know where I'd be?" The man laughed, a sound full of centuries of adventures. Naruko felt a shiver of excitement, not fear, run through her. Somehow, she knew this was the start of a very unusual, very magical evening. Azazel, still smiling, let out a soft laugh at the clear tension in the air. "Why, the Grigori, of course. You know my large, powerful faction that I lead? They have eyes everywhere, in every city on the planet. One little slip, and I can find you. Even if you try to hide your power, someone always notices. In fact, one of my agents called me a week ago, said you'd turned up in Kyoto. Not too surprising, I suppose. It took a lot of magical tracking, and money, to follow you from there, but I found you again, all the way here in Kuo." Naruko eyed the man cautiously. She had never really liked Azazel. Brilliantly smart, powerful, and unpredictable, he reminded her of a mischievous fox with too many secrets. And yet, something about him stirred long-lost memories of her younger days. Memories of laughter, adventure, and moments before the weight of responsibility had pressed down on her shoulders. Azazel's voice seemed to awaken those fleeting, nostalgic moments. "The last time I saw you was 1912, on the Titanic," Azazel said with a chuckle, patting Naruko lightly on the shoulder, ignoring her wary frown. "Ah, good times." Naruko crossed her arms, recalling the memory. "From what I remember, I was having a wonderful time with my king. Right up until you showed up and caused a scene. You're lucky I don't scold you right here. That was supposed to be my first real holiday in years. I usually spend all my time trying to keep peace in this messy world, and then you come along and," she paused, letting out a small huff, "ruin it for me." Now, Naruko," Azazel said, still smiling, "you know your king, she can get dramatic sometimes. That was just a small overreaction to a joke about the seraph and the Mao. Can't an old friend visit without trouble?" Naruko glared at him, and the sparkle in his smile dimmed. After a moment, he became serious. "Naruko, there's something you should know. In the past few years, a rogue group has started to form. They've been growing fast, and they're dangerous, not just to the human world, but to the underworld and heaven as well. This isn't a little quarrel, it could become a full-blown conflict, like the Great War you've heard about. Naruko's gaze softened, concern replacing irritation. How are they different from the usual troublemakers? She asked. This group isn't just one type of being, Azazel explained. They have angels, fallen angels, devils, strays, magicians, sacred gear users, yokai, you name it. And they're not chaotic, they're organized. Naruko's eyes widened. Then, a small, knowing smile crept across her face. Ah, I see. You mean the Chaos Brigade? Azazel blinked, surprised. You know them? Of course, Naruko said lightly. They even tried to recruit me once. She gave him a reassuring smile. But I said no. Their goals aren't mine to follow, and besides, I have a king I am loyal to. Azazel nodded slowly, respecting her honesty. He had known Naruko for a long time and understood her dedication. Still, a little part of him knew it wouldn't hurt to keep an eye on her, just in case. Well, as delightful as this chat has been, Azazel, Naruko said, straightening her cloak, I have somewhere to be. I'm sure we'll meet again, hopefully in 100 years under better circumstances. Oh, I'm sure we'll see each other much sooner, Azazel replied with a sly grin. Big things are stirring here in Kuo, and you're right in the middle of it. With that, Naruko turned and walked away, her head held high, a small breeze lifting her hair as the promise of new adventures awaited her. It was nighttime in the town of Kuo, and most people had already returned to their homes after a long day, leaving the streets quiet and peaceful. Only a few figures moved beneath the soft glow of the street lamps. One of them was a young girl who looked to be in her late teens. She had bright blonde hair tied in playful pigtails and sparkling blue eyes that seemed to glow with curiosity. At this moment, she was perched lightly on a branch in the park, her gaze fixed on the empty paths below. Naruko had come to this quiet park for one reason: she had heard whispers of something unusual happening tonight. It wasn't danger, exactly, but rather a magical mystery she couldn't resist investigating. Kuo had always been a town full of ordinary charm, but Naruko knew that sometimes the most extraordinary things happened in the most ordinary places. Tonight, she was ready to find one of those moments. From her perch in the tree, she could see a soft flicker of movement near the bushes. She crouched silently, her small figure almost invisible in the shadow of the branches. Soon, a pair of voices floated through the night air. Oh, look at that glowing flower, Hayao. A girl's cheerful voice called out. Her friend giggled beside her, clearly enchanted by whatever she was pointing at. Naruko's eyes widened. This wasn't a regular couple, something magical shimmered around the girl, like stardust dancing in her hair. Naruko's instincts twitched with excitement. This wasn't just a simple night stroll, it was a chance to witness something extraordinary. A few minutes earlier, Hayao Issei had been wandering the town, feeling a little gloomy after a series of small mishaps. Nothing seemed to go his way, and he had resigned himself to another boring evening. That was when he noticed her, Yuuma, a bright and cheerful girl with an aura that seemed to make the world a little lighter. She had a sparkle in her violet eyes, and her long, dark hair glimmered like a waterfall of stars under the moonlight. Hi there. Would you like to see something amazing? She asked with a grin, holding out a tiny glowing lantern that floated above her palm. Issei blinked, unsure if he was dreaming. He nodded eagerly, captivated by her radiant energy. The two of them wandered through Kuo's quiet streets, exploring little shops, colorful lanterns, and cozy cafes. Laughter followed them wherever they went, and Issei felt lighter than he had in days. Yuuma showed him the secret wonders of their town, glowing flowers that bloomed only at night, little hidden fountains, and even a tiny rooftop garden where the stars seemed close enough to touch. By the time they reached the park, Issei felt like the luckiest boy in the world. He had shared so many smiles tonight, and the magic in Yuuma's eyes made everything feel possible. Hey, Aiz-kun, Yuuma said gently, her voice carrying across the quiet park. There's something I want to share with you. Will you come see it with me? Issei's heart leapt with excitement. Naruko, still hidden in the tree, watched with a smile. Even from her vantage point, she could feel the warmth of their friendship and joy. She loved seeing moments like this, when ordinary nights turned into something magical. Tonight, the park wasn't just a park. It was a place of wonder, laughter, and the beginning of a story that would stay in the hearts of these two friends forever. Naruko shifted on her branch, ready to follow the sparkling trail of magic, eager to see what adventures awaited her next. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, and the moon cast a silver glow over the fountain in Kuo Park. Naruko smiled at Yuuma, her eyes sparkling like tiny stars. You wanted to come here, right? She asked, tilting her head playfully. Yuuma nodded, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. I have a wish, she said softly. Will you help me? Naruko's heart thumped like a drum. Of course. What is it? Yuuma held out her hand, and tiny golden lights began to swirl around it, dancing like fireflies. I want to see a magical fountain show, just for us, she said, her eyes twinkling with excitement. With a deep breath, Naruko clapped her hands together. In an instant, the fountain's water sprang higher, swirling into shapes of playful animals and twinkling stars. Rainbow-colored mist shimmered in the moonlight, and the droplets danced around them like tiny fairies. Yuuma laughed with delight, twirling in the mist. It's perfect. Thank you, Naruko. Naruko grinned. Anything for a friend, she said, and together they watched the fountain glow, their laughter filling the quiet night. Upon hearing the voice, Rias jumped in surprise, almost dropping her precious pawn piece. Turning toward the sound, she saw a familiar figure emerging from the shadows. The moonlight shone on her, revealing bright golden eyes and a confident smile. It was Naruko Uzumaki, her golden hair gleaming like sunlight even in the darkness. What are you doing here, Naruko? I told you not to interfere, Rias said firmly, trying to hide her curiosity. Don't worry, Naruko said cheerfully, her voice like a soft breeze. I'm not here to interfere. I just wanted to watch. Besides, I think your friend has a lot of potential, even if she doesn't know it yet. Rias felt a flutter of hope in her chest. She's human, yes, but she can grow strong. Once she understands her powers, she can achieve great things. I want to guide her. Naruko nodded, her eyes twinkling. Then I'll watch, and maybe help in my own way. People grow in different ways, and sometimes all they need is a little encouragement. With a playful laugh, Naruko disappeared in a swirl of moonlight, leaving Rias both relieved and thoughtful. Perhaps she's right, Rias murmured. She might be someone I can count on in the future. Turning back to her task, Rias carefully placed her magical chess pieces over the chest of the barely moving Issei. A gentle glow began to spread, filling the park with soft red light. I command thee, Hyaudu Issei, in my name Rias Gremory. Rias's voice was steady and kind as she concentrated. The pieces glimmered, sinking slowly into Issei's form. Rias whispered, rise, and walk the world anew as a loyal and courageous companion of the Gremory household. For a brief moment, Issei gasped and opened his eyes. He saw the warm red glow and felt life returning to him. Rias smiled softly as she prepared to heal his wound with a touch of gentle magic, her heart full of determination to help him recover fully. In another part of Kuo, far from the quiet park, an old abandoned church stood silently. Its walls had not echoed with voices for years, and the wooden pews were coated in dust. Inside, a small group of fallen angels gathered. One of them, Rainier, had a twinkle of mischief in her eyes as she spoke excitedly. The mission was a success. Everything is on track. Nearby, Middled, a petite angel with bright golden hair, pouted. Must you shout like that? It's too noisy. Calawarner, a tall and gentle angel with long midnight hair, chuckled. She's just excited. It's been a long journey, and we're one step closer to helping everyone reach their goals. Donasik, a serious angel in a trench coat, shook his head. Focus on the plan. Excitement is fine, but we must be careful. We are here to help, not to cause trouble. Rainier grinned. I have an idea. Instead of taking power from those with sacred gears, we could guide them. With a little magic, we could help them learn and grow stronger, and in return, they can help others. Imagine how many lives we could brighten. The others looked at her, eyes widening with understanding. Middled's pout melted into a small smile. That does sound much better than fighting. We could make the world a better place instead. Calawarner nodded, it's a noble plan. Let's work together, and make sure everyone we meet can shine brightly. Donasik finally allowed himself a small smile. Then we will use our powers to inspire and protect, and never to harm. That is the true way of the angels. And so, in the quiet of the abandoned church, a new journey began, one of friendship, growth, and magical adventures. Naruko would watch from afar, Rias would guide her companions, and together, they would create a brighter world filled with courage, hope, and laughter. Humans had tried their chance, but they often misused the magical gifts of the world, using them for selfish reasons instead of kindness. If humans cannot treat these gifts with respect, then perhaps it is time someone taught them how, said the wise woman Calawarner, speaking as one might to a child who had misbehaved. I agree with Rainier, added Donaseek, at the very least, we can guide them. All we would be doing is helping them see a better way. Before Donaseek could continue, a new voice rang out, cheerful and unexpected. Well, what an interesting idea. I thought of doing something similar myself, but these magical gifts are far too precious to waste. You, on the other hand. The voice chuckled. Turning toward the sound, the four angels saw a young girl with spiky blonde hair, wearing a bright orange jacket over a comfortable outfit. Her golden eyes sparkled with energy and curiosity. Hi. I'm Naruko Uzumaki. And yes, I somehow got here by following an unusual trail, though it's a long story. Who are you, and how did you get in here? Calla Warner demanded, her tone sharp but cautious. Oh, don't worry. I'm not here to fight. I just like asking questions. And helping people when I can, Naruko said, twirling a lock of her hair. She had a mischievous grin but radiated warmth, the kind of presence that made people feel calmer despite the tension. Rainier frowned but hesitated. We are busy. You shouldn't have come here, stranger. Naruko giggled. I know. But it's okay, I just want to understand. Everyone seems a bit tense. Let's see if we can fix that. Before the angels could respond further, Naruko used a gentle wave of her hands. Shadows swirled around her like soft ribbons, but instead of harming, they simply lifted the angels lightly into the air, holding them safely suspended. There. No one gets hurt, and now we can talk properly, she said with a wink. The four angels blinked in surprise, still hanging but unharmed. Naruko's energy wasn't threatening, it was protective, curious, and playful. So, who is in charge of all this? And what is the plan? She asked calmly. Middled, the youngest of the four, hesitated but soon spoke. We follow Kakabiel. He told us to do things we didn't want to, and he said he would punish us if we didn't obey. Naruko nodded thoughtfully. So someone is being mean and making you do things you shouldn't. I see. That's not fair at all. What will you do with us now? Rainier asked, unsure but sensing Naruko's kindness. Naruko smiled gently. I won't hurt you, that's for sure. But I can help you make better choices. I want to help you protect people instead of being forced into trouble. You can be my helpers, but in a good way, okay? You'll still do important work, but it'll be the right kind of work. Calla Warner frowned. And why should we trust you? Because I care about people, and about fairness, Naruko said, her golden eyes sparkling. And I have a little magic of my own to help keep everyone safe. I'll make sure no one can trick you or hurt you while we work together. Middle looked hopeful. So, you're saying we don't have to be scared anymore? Exactly, Naruko said cheerfully. You'll have a team that watches out for each other. You'll report back to me, and together we can make sure everyone uses their magical gifts for good. And yes, I'll make sure you're always safe, too. The four angels exchanged glances, slowly nodding. For the first time in a long while, they felt the warmth of someone on their side. Naruko's presence didn't just stop the danger, it gave them hope. Now, Naruko said with a grin, let's start by learning a little about each other. I want to know all about my new team of clever angels. And with that, the four angels, who had once been bound by fear, floated safely beside Naruko, ready to discover a brighter, kinder path together. Most probably, yeah. Also, I wouldn't try to mess with the seals, they're kind of my specialty. I'm the best seal master in existence, you know, and messing with them could backfire in the silliest ways. Naruko's eyes twinkled as she spoke, almost bursting out laughing at the pale faces in front of her. And how will you be putting them on us? Rainier asked nervously, having realized she didn't really have a choice. Oh, don't worry about that, Naruko said with a playful grin. They're already on you. What do you think my shadows have been doing all this time? Just like how I used them to plant that tiny little tracking mark at the park, I've already placed my special servant seals on all of you. Don't worry, they're tried and tested. Probably. With a flick of her wrist, Naruko released the shadows that had held them, sending them gently tumbling to the floor with a soft, thumping oof. Anyway, I've got other things to do, so as you were. Continue your planning and plotting and whatnot, but don't forget my orders, she added, spinning on her heel and heading toward the church doors. Before she could reach them, she stopped and glanced back, a mysterious sparkle in her eyes. As for how I'll keep you safe from Azazel and Kakabiel. Naruko raised her hands, and a warm, golden light shimmered around her. The light wasn't scary, it felt like a soft, invisible blanket wrapping the four fallen in a gentle, sparkling cocoon. They gasped and blinked, their knees buckling under the weight of this strange, magical presence. First Calawarner, then Donaseek, and then Middle slowly sank to the ground, almost like they were drifting into a very cozy nap, unable to resist the gentle pull of Naruko's magic. Rainier's vision blurred, and she felt herself getting sleepy too. Watching Naruko glide gracefully toward the church door, her last thought before drifting into a dreamlike haze was, what have we gotten ourselves into? Naruko's laugh rang out softly, musical and light. She didn't mean to scare anyone, she just had a way of making the impossible look playful, like a game only she knew how to play. And with that, she disappeared through the church doors, leaving a trail of sparkling, harmless magic in her wake. It was early morning the day after Issei's resurrection and Naruko's encounter with the mysterious fallen angels. Naruko, the girl in question, was at that moment approaching the front doors of Kuo Academy, weaving through clusters of giggling girls and laughing boys. She was back in her guise as an ordinary student, wearing the standard Kuo Academy uniform, though she'd left the tie undone and the top 2 buttons of her blouse casually open. As she stepped into the familiar school foyer, Naruko came to a sudden stop. Someone was approaching her, and though the figure seemed ordinary, Naruko's sharp instincts told her they were a devil, a rather inexperienced one, at that. She quickly ran through the mental list of devils she'd encountered at Kuo to guess who it might be. Uzumaki-san? A voice called from her right. Naruko turned, her golden eyes calm but alert, and spotted a student walking toward her. It was Genshiro Saji, the loyal pawn of Sonosidori. He was a young man with short blonde hair and gray eyes, dressed in his school uniform with sleeves rolled up, but unfortunately, he hadn't abandoned the tie, which Naruko found mildly amusing. Yes, Saji? What do you want? Naruko asked, her tone polite but teasing. And just so you know, if this is some weird attempt to ask me out, I'm not interested. But maybe Kiba would be a better match for you. Her grin sparkled with mischief. What are you talking about? I'm not. Saji stammered, blushing furiously. Naruko's teasing had clearly thrown him off completely. After a few panicked words that ended in muffled embarrassment, he realized he'd been caught in her playful trap. Anyway, Naruko continued smoothly, if you're not here to ask me on a date, what is it? I do have a busy schedule, you know. Well, Saji stuttered, trying to regain his composure, I'm here on behalf of Keiku Sona, the student council president. She wants to meet you in the student council room. If you'd follow me. Ooh, sounds fun. Lead the way, Saji-chan, Naruko said, enjoying the way his ears twitched at her nickname. As they walked, a curious thought flitted through Naruko's mind. She wanted a little privacy before meeting Sona, so with a sly grin, she stopped suddenly and gave Saji a sharp look. Her golden eyes gleamed with playful determination, and Saji froze, unsure of what he'd done wrong. I think I can find my own way from here, Saji, she said gently, keeping her smile in place. Why don't you go ahead? It wasn't subtle, but it worked perfectly. Saji turned and ran down the hallway as fast as he could, leaving Naruko to continue alone. Silently, she moved toward the student council room, keeping her presence hidden. The magical detection spells that surrounded the area completely failed to notice her cleverly suppressed energy. Naruko arrived at the slightly ajar door and quietly pushed it open. Inside, she saw Sona prancing around the room, singing to a tune and twirling with unrestrained joy. Naruko couldn't help but giggle quietly. Sona's composed, elegant image was nothing like this carefree moment. She paused to watch, enchanted. Sona's movements were full of life, her voice playful and pure. Naruko felt a warm, happy feeling bubble up inside her. It was comforting and magical, seeing someone so poised yet so delightfully free. Naruko tiptoed a little closer, careful not to interrupt, her heart light with amusement and curiosity. This was going to be a very interesting meeting indeed. Deciding that now was the perfect moment to announce her presence, Naruko sang out with a bright voice, "'Cause you know I'd walk 1,000 miles if I could just see you tonight." The moment her words floated into the room, Sona spun around and froze. There, standing in the doorway with a playful sparkle in her eyes, was Naruko. Sona's jaw dropped, her carefully polished composure crumbling like sandcastles in a gentle tide. Her eyes widened as recognition finally clicked, this was Naruko. Her face paled in shock as she realized the clever disguise Naruko had used to sneak in unnoticed had worked perfectly. Until now. For what felt like an eternity, the two just stared at each other. Naruko wore a mischievous grin, twinkling with amusement, while Sona looked like a deer caught in the headlights. "Oh, don't mind me," Naruko said cheerfully, gliding over to Sona's desk. She plopped into the chair behind it, kicked her legs up, and waved for Sona to keep singing. Do carry on. This looks pretty important. But hey, I have an even better idea. Why don't we sing it together, like a duet? Wouldn't that be fun? Her laughter danced lightly in the air. Sona could only gape, her face flushing a bright shade of crimson. I. Why you? I mean, what are you doing here? No, wait, she stammered, scrambling for words as questions tumbled through her mind. Naruko chuckled warmly, sensing Sona's embarrassment. I knew it. I knew you weren't as serious all the time as you seemed. You're more like your sister than you think. Oh, I can imagine her chasing you around, begging for a duet on her show. Sona's eyes widened further. Shut up. No, wait, why are you here? Since when have you been here? Mo, so tan, so demanding. Is that really all you have to say to poor old Naruko-sama? Naruko replied, her grin widening. Though, I have to say, you and your sister have a lot in common. She's going to keep chasing you until you agree to something fun, I can tell already. Don't even joke about it, Sona said, her face paling further as she imagined the chaos her sister could unleash. No, wait, stop dodging the question. Why are you here? Did Wani-sama send you? Naruko shook her head with a smile. Why, you make it sound like you're not happy to see me. And honestly, I don't follow anyone's orders. I'm only here because I wanted to be. And maybe because I was a little bored. Sometimes, interesting things happen when you show up unexpectedly. Sona crossed her arms, trying to regain some dignity. Well, I'm not happy to see you, she said, but Naruko only laughed, tilting her head in delight at Sona's flustered expression. Most of the lords and ladies of the Pillar clans already know about my adventures, Naruko said with a cheeky grin. And as for your sister? She's uniquely enthusiastic. I had to set some conditions to keep up with her energy. Sona blinked. Unique? That's one way to put it. Naruko giggled. You know, like the time your sister spent hours chasing me around the Citri estates with toy Pokeballs, insisting I become her Pokedevil Grandmaster. And you call that normal? Sona squeaked. Well, it's a little unusual, maybe, but not totally insane. Naruko laughed even louder. And what about the time she wanted us to create sisterly magical adventures together? Sona's face turned a shade of greenish white. Please tell me you didn't. Naruko's only answer was a mischievous giggle. No, Sona exclaimed, clutching her hands to her cheeks. See? Your sister's energy can be overwhelming, Naruko said gently, leaning forward with a warm smile. That's why I had to set my own rules. Not because I don't like her, but because she's unstoppable. Sona took a deep breath, finally laughing despite herself. Oh okay. Maybe you're justified. But really, you're just as crazy as she is. Crazy? Me? Never. I'm perfectly, spectacularly sane, Naruko said, striking a playful pose. Sona giggled despite herself. You really think so? What about all the wild stories you told me when I was younger? Naruko's eyes twinkled. Stories are meant to inspire imagination, aren't they? And maybe a little bit of adventure, too. When I was Genghis Khan or led armies to bring peace, I didn't just tell stories, I lived them. Humanity needed a little nudge to grow, and I just happened to be the helper. Sona's eyes softened. I remember. Even if it was a little scary at the time, I did love those stories. Naruko smiled warmly. Exactly. And now that the heavy stuff is out of the way, I want to know, how have you been? How's life in the human world treating you? Sona smiled back, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Better. Now that you're here, at least. Naruko grinned. Good. Because I have a feeling a little adventure is about to start. And it's going to be fun. And with that, the room filled with laughter, music, and the promise of new, magical memories waiting to be made. Student Council Room, 1 hour later. Naruko had just left the Student Council Room, leaving Sona Citri alone for all of 30 seconds before the rest of the Student Council members trickled in. One by one, they took their seats, their eyes filled with curiosity. Everyone wanted to know why Naruko had been visiting Sona for so long, and what sort of secret they might have shared. Well, Tsubasa Yura, a tall girl with blue, shoulder-length hair and sparkling matching eyes, said, running a hand through her hair, who would have thought Naruko-sama has been here all along? How did none of us notice her before? Tsubaki Shinra, a young woman with long straight black hair and heterochromatic eyes, spoke next, adjusting her glasses. Keiku, when you told us to prepare for a guest today, I never expected it to be Naruko-sama of all people. Saji, the only boy in the room, looked from Sona to Tsubaki in confusion. Wait. You all know who she is? I thought Sona Keiku was meeting with her because she didn't know her. Momo, a girl with long white hair, gasped softly, slapping her forehead with realization. Ah, that's right. You were only recently reincarnated, Saji. You haven't had the chance to visit the Citri estates yet, so you probably never saw Naruko hanging around before. Saji's eyebrows shot up. Wait. What? Are you saying she's some kind of big deal? Sona stepped in, her voice calm but firm. Yes, I was just as surprised as you all. Naruko-sama has been around the school all this time, using some kind of illusion to hide her presence. Even if we recognized her, we would have thought she was someone else entirely. It's a very clever technique. But her being here is something we must pay attention to. Tomoe, a cheerful girl with shoulder-length reddish-brown hair, leaned forward with a playful smile. Wherever Naruko-sama goes, your sister Sarafal-sama is bound to follow eventually. Sona sighed. It's not that I'm worried about my sister. From what I've heard from Naruko and my sister, she tends to attract trouble wherever she goes. As for who she is, well, she's practically part of our family in a very special way. Saji's jaw dropped. Wait. You mean you're related to her? Sona shook her head firmly. No, she is not a blood relative. Naruko-sama is the queen of my sister Sarafal's peerage. She is one of the most remarkable and extraordinary beings you will ever meet. What do you mean, Keiku? Saji asked, taking in the nodding heads of the other council members, who all agreed with Sona. She is ancient, even by devil standards, Sona explained. No one knows exactly how old she is. Some say she has been around since the beginning of known civilization. She has seen more history than any of us can imagine. Long ago, she became my sister's queen. Naruko-sama has gone by many names, but to most, she is simply known as Behemoth. She spends a lot of time with my sister, and, well, they share a very special bond that's hard to explain. Nearly all of our peerage have met her over the years. Yura let out a dreamy sigh, her cheeks turning pink. She's amazing. Really amazing. Saji gulped nervously. So calling her a bastard would be a very bad idea, right? Tomoe laughed softly, shaking her head. Yes, Saji. It's best not to upset Naruko-sama. Unless you're clever and kind, then maybe. Just maybe. You could get away with it. She turned to Sona with a teasing grin. Right, Keiku? Sona gave a small, patient smile, though a faint hint of worry lingered in her eyes. Yes. She is someone extraordinary. Just remember, Naruko-sama may bring excitement wherever she goes, but she is also someone you should treat with respect. The room fell into a quiet awe, each council member secretly thrilled at the thought of having Naruko around. She was mysterious, dazzling, and full of surprises, but somehow, they all knew that her presence would bring adventure and laughter to their lives. Outside the student council room, Naruko hummed happily as she wandered through the school halls, leaving the student council room behind. Her mind wandered back to the conversation she had just had with Sona. She had always been grateful that she accepted Sarafal's invitation to join her group all those years ago. Naruko had always been fascinated by the magical world, and she loved the idea of lifelong friends who could share adventures without worrying about time or growing old. Being part of Sarafal's team had strengthened her bonds with the magical and supernatural world. Her friends from both human and magical circles were like a family, and she had even created her own little circle of friends with Sarafal's encouragement, a group she could count on and care for, a family that would last forever. Although she could not grant immortality herself, Naruko had discovered ways to preserve the bonds and memories of her loved ones, ensuring that their laughter and friendship could last forever in her heart. Her thoughts were interrupted by a loud, cheerful voice. Hey, Naruko-san. Naruko turned and gave a small, amused frown at the brown-haired boy rushing toward her. Issei Hayao was always full of energy, almost bouncing with excitement. Issei, she said, trying to sound serious, what is it this time? I just wanted to make sure you remember Yuuma-chan. My friend, the girl I brought to school, Issei said, eyes sparkling with hope. Naruko tilted her head, pretending to think. Yuuma? Does that ring a bell? Yes. You remember her. I'm not imagining things, Issei shouted happily. Naruko laughed softly. I was just teasing, Issei. But yes, I remember now. Issei's face lit up like the sun. Yay. Thank you, Naruko-san. Naruko waved a hand casually. No problem, kid. Now, run along, There are adventures waiting, places to go and people to see. Occult Research Club, 2 days later. Naruko entered the Occult Research Club building, feeling a mix of curiosity and amusement. She had been summoned by Kiba again, this time for a meeting with the Gremory girl. She had waited a couple of hours, mostly because she liked reminding people that she couldn't be rushed. So, Gremory-chan, she began with a playful smile, what's so important that you needed to summon me? She walked into the room confidently, noticing Ria sitting calmly on a couch while her assistant Akeno stood gracefully behind her. Uzumaki-san, thank you for coming, Ria said politely, though her frown hinted at mild exasperation. I need your help with a delicate matter. Naruko raised an eyebrow. Oh? What kind of help? Rias explained the situation carefully. One of their mutual friends, a human named Issei, had befriended a kind-hearted young nun named Osis. She was part of a magical faction called the Fallen Angels and had found herself in trouble. Some of the Fallen Angels didn't want her to leave, and Issei needed help to ensure she stayed safe. Naruko leaned back in the couch, feet resting on the polished table in front of her, curious but relaxed. And you want me to? What? Help make sure everyone plays nice? Akeno smiled gently. Yes, exactly. Issei is brave but inexperienced. We need someone with skill and a sense of adventure to guide things safely. Naruko's eyes sparkled. Sounds like fun. So, what's the plan? Rias explained how they would create a distraction to draw attention away from Issei and the others, allowing them to safely reach Osis. Akeno added, with a mischievous grin, that Naruko's quick thinking and courage would make it even more exciting. Naruko clapped her hands together, thrilled. Adventure and a chance to help friends? Count me in. And of course, Gremory-chan, you'll owe me a favor after this. Rias nodded, grateful, and Naruko turned toward the window, gazing at the distant abandoned church. A sly smile crossed her face. All right then, let the games begin. With that, Naruko's next adventure was ready to unfold, full of friendship, clever plans, and the promise of laughter along the way. Dear YouTube team. That's all for today. I hope you found this content engaging and insightful. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to my channel. It truly helps me continue creating and improving. Your support means a lot and keeps the passion for content alive. Thank you for your time and attention. Warm regards. 6 Path Weeb.